swiftly. And I've been using most recently, there's a company called Conformis, which is becoming quite well known for doing this sort of technology, combined, if necessary, with custom-made knee replacements. So then we're looking at changing the implant itself, and specifically looking at the issues with off-the-shelf implants versus an implant that is specifically the right size and shape for your particular patient. Yeah. In the operating theatre, if I'm doing a, in inverted commas, standard knee replacement, I will open up the knee and then do measurements and calculate the size of the implant that's needed. But in the operating theatre, I have a range of sizes available to me. For example, size 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. But my patient might be a size 4.35 rather than being a size 4 or a size 5. And then obviously you are worrying about trying to make the patient fit the implant rather than the implant fit the patient. Yeah. You've probably heard this before.
Yeah, I have. And again, correct me if I'm wrong in my understanding here, but how I've come to understand it is, like you say, if you have a patient who, let's say, is a perfect size 4 and you have a size 4 prosthesis, then great, there's a good match. But as you say, if they're a 4.3 and you've only got either the 4 or the 5, yes, there's going to be a mismatch between that prosthesis and the bone that it's sitting on, and there can sometimes be like a little overshelf or
overhang or underhang, or undersizing.
And the theory is that can sometimes be a source of soft tissue irritation after the knee replacement. Maybe that's why it doesn't feel quite right. Maybe it's why it's prolonged bit of inflammation. It doesn't. They're not maybe making the recovery that they were expecting, perhaps because of that slight mismatch. Is that
exactly right? And so, if it's feasible to get an implant that is exactly the right size and shape for a patient, logic to me would suggest that that's going to be better for the patient. Yeah. And in fact, this Conformis knee replacement, it's been around now long enough that we can see the early outcomes on our national joint registry data. We collect the data for all knee replacements and hip replacements in the country, and we've used that for decades as a way to judge what works and what doesn't work. And it's a fairly crude measurement because it looks at failure. Does the patient need to have revision or redo surgery? Yeah. And the Conformis implants that have been put in over the last few years are performing really well, better than the rest of the knee replacements at an equivalent stage after surgery. So there's a justification there.
Yeah. And would you say, in terms of just anecdotally, the patient, because a lot of the surgeons that I speak to who do the Conformis, or have, let's say, have progressed to the Conformis, they often say to me anecdotally, they say, off the record, I have noticed my patient, a bit more like the hips you're saying, I noticed the patients are happier generally.
I've seen a difference, I have to say. It's difficult to quantify and to prove. It comes back to this discussion we had before about that 5 to 10% of dissatisfied patients. Time will tell, but for me the early indicators are that maybe using something like custom knee replacement with patient-specific alignment of that implant, using 3D printed jigs, is a fairly low-tech, believe it or not, simple, not very expensive way of trying to improve outcomes. And that's why I've focused on that rather than at this stage investigating the option of robotic surgery. That's not to say I wouldn't be interested in looking for that method perhaps in the future.